It's the best. It's the best of the Best Seat in the House podcast, 2024 edition. All the highlights, all the great moments of 2024, the year in New York sports. All of us reacting to all those moments that happened. You'll get to see that there. Even some guest appearances, including the great Karl Hamburger from Who Are These podcast. We had him on. We had a Mets player appear on briefly to congratulate us on our 100th episodes. Lot of fun stuff. Fans of Best Seat in the House podcast, have you ever kind of wanted to ever get an idea what it's like, a crazy journey when I'm going to the Davey Mac Sports Program, which is usually filmed in New Jersey? Well, now you're gonna get a little behind the scenes, a little insight into what that public transportation journey is like from where I live in Queens. And you're going to get to see a little guest appearance by my co-host Robert Cramer, who joined me on this appearance on the Davey Mac Sports Program. So sit back and enjoy this journey that me and my good pal Robert Cramer joined me. When Robert Cramer, of course, joined me by traveling from via Long Island, meeting up with me when I hit the Penn Station portion when we both transferred to the New Jersey Transit train, which would take us the rest of the way to Jersey, where we get picked up by Eastside Dave at Metro Park Station. Then we go through the long reverse of that journey on the return trip. And of course, with all that journey, you got that amazing appearance on the Davey Mac Sports Program. Which, if you have not watched this week's episode, do yourself a favor and watch the very episode of the Davey Mac Sports Program that I'm talking about. Enjoy this whole video. What's up, everyone watching this supporters of Best Seat in the House podcast? You're looking at the beginning of my trip to New Jersey to meet up with Eastside Dave to appear on the Davey Mac Sports Program. And right now you're seeing me here at 61st Street Woodside over in my hometown of Queens as I will be meeting up with my co-host Robert Cramer at Penn Station. His train where he gets on is bypassing this stop. I'll be meeting him at Penn. So see you guys in the... And here we are, the train has arrived. Keep in mind, people, I'm braving very cold weather to do this trip. Station is Penn Station. Okay, on the second leg of the trip, and of course, see here on this trip, one more leg to go before we get to Dave. Yep, we made it. Waiting the final leg of the trip, the man himself, Dave. We're in this station house in Metro Park. Right here, there
we go. Yep. Eastside Dave.
Eastside Dave. Eastside Dave. Eastside Dave.
That was good. Only a little tiny blizzard. It was like a mini blizzard.
Yeah, it flew right through it.
Yeah. Happy about it. All right.
Definitely enjoying being a fly on the wall for that conversation.
That was a good episode. We've never done a presidential trivia before.
I'm waiting to hear your take on getting Marcus Stroman too, by the way.
Yeah.
That's,
Cash, man.
We're getting ready for the start of the show. It's behind the scenes live footage of Dave, Roy, And this is Bobby behind the scenes. So everyone, surprisingly, Big A didn't show up.
Raucous enthusiasm is we have an audience of two, but really they're celebrities, Roy.
They're good. It's a good audience of two.
The co-hosts of the Best Seat in the House sports podcast. And if I have to tell either one of you to put the microphone up to your mouth, I will fucking come over there and I will strangle the both of you. But put them together for Robert Cramer and his co-host, Daniel Bobo Karl. All right, Bobo, you're here. It's the Davey Mac Sports Program, and you're excited to be here. We got a lot to talk about. You are the co-host of the Best Seats in the House. How is the Best Seats in the House podcast doing these days?
We're doing well. Our numbers are growing as we speak.
Look at that.
Whoa.
Excellent. Numbers growing as we speak. What kind of numbers? Like Lipson, YouTube numbers? What kind of what podcast numbers? Streaming numbers?
We're reaching 600.
Mainly I was just asking what kind of, on YouTube or on Lipson or...
We're on YouTube.
Okay, excellent job there by Bobo. And now, Robert Cramer, this question is for you. Is this is someone forcing you to make Bobo your co-host? Has someone threatened you to? They're going to expose you for some sort of thing. Are you being blackmailed to make Bobo your co-host?
Perhaps a Mighty Ducks type situation.
Yeah.
The judge ordered you community
right.
service.
Is this being exactly community service? Are you on probation? Are you forced to have Bobo as your co-host? And please make sure that microphone's up to your mouth.
Well, yes, I have a history with law enforcement, both good and bad, and one of the outcomes of that was being forced to do the Best Seat in the House podcast.
Bo! I thought he would be serious, and instead he fucking threw your ass under the bus. I love this, Roy. We might get the dissolution of Best Seats in the House live on the DMSP.
Nice one.
We might get one of our rivals, this up-and-coming sports podcast. Let's be honest. We're like the Sopranos sitting down with Johnny Sack, the New York family over here. We're the fucking Jersey family. We're going to fucking break bread and be nice. But at the same time, we're slightly encouraging them to kill each other.
They're encroaching on our territory.
Yeah, they're encroaching on us. All right, now we have a couple of things for you. We are going to decide who the better Best Seats in the House co-host is later on with a trivia competition. And for the first time ever, we're going to put both of them under interrogation.
Yes.
The Wire, one of those shows where police officers are interrogating criminals, which is what the two of you are. I'm not a cop, but the two of you are no good criminals. So I will be doing the interrogation. I want fucking honest answers. All right? I don't want no fucking lies out of your mouth. Bo, I'm looking at you.
Okay.
I want you to be straight up with me. Let me help you.
Okay.
Let me help you in this thing, okay? But I'll tell you what. You try lying to me, I'm going to fuck you. Now, do you want me to help you or to fuck you?
I want you to help me.
All right. You don't want me to fuck you, right?
Right.
You sure?
I'm sure.
I'll fuck you in the ass right now. Right on table 17.
No, I'm sure.
You sure about that?
I'm sure I don't want that.
You want me to help you?
Exactly.
Not fuck you.
Exactly.
All right. What are your names? Full names, please.
Name's Daniel Robert Curlin,
Where
also known as Bobo.
And where are you from?
Queens, New York.
Kramer, same to you.
Robert Cramer from Levittown, New York.
Keep the microphone on yourself, Mr. Cramer. Mr. Cramer, if you were drowning in the Hudson River, would you trust Bobo to jump in and save you?
Yes.
Mr. Cramer, you would be totally dead. There's no way this guy can swim well. Bobo, do you know how to swim?
I know how to swim.
But you can't swim well. You couldn't be able to go underwater, save Robert Cramer, who's fucking panicking in his car. The car went off the bridge. That's what I'm envisioning. And he's still buckled into his seatbelt. You're going to be able to go fucking 40 feet underwater, unbuckle Robert Cramer, and get him back to the surface?
I could.
No way you could. No way you could. No way. No way. Again, this is supposed to be honest. Bobo, do you know how to administer CPR?
I had certification during 95% of my high school years.
95% isn't 100, is it?
Well, it was because at the time,
if
there
you
was a
try
class,
to save someone's life, you can't go, oh, I was about 95% successful. Because the other 5% meant fucking Kramer just died. That's what that means. See, when you save someone's life, you need to be 100% successful, not 95.
I didn't say successful.
That's enough for you, Kramer! Do you think Bobo wipes sufficiently after using the bathroom?
Yes, I do.
You've never smelled any little poo from, that side of his body? When you're doing the podcast, you go, what's that? What's that? What does that smell? Bo, did you wipe sufficiently? That never happens on Best Seats in the House, Best Sith?
On the B-Sith podcast, no, I've never gotten a poop
B-Sith,
waft.
that's even better.
This is wrapping up the journey home back to New York from that amazing little trip to the Davey Mac Sports Program. I'm Daniel Bobo Curlin.
I'm Rob Kramer.
And this has been the Best Seat in the House podcast. And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. That is the entire journey to New Jersey, documented in this short video that you have just watched. Like I said, the link to the very episode of Davey Mac Sports Program that I'm discussing in this video, and you've seen footage of the journey to, you will see the link to it in the description of this video. Peace out. Don't forget to watch all the episodes of Best Seat in the House podcast we put out.
100. 10 times 10 equals 100. There are 100 cents in a dollar. A football field is 100 yards. There are 100 senators in Congress. The sum of the first 9 prime numbers is 100. The boiling temperature of water is 100. Abraham was 100 years old when his son Isaac was born. The number of tiles in a standard Scrabble set is 100. The temperature of the human body is 98.6 degrees, which is close to 100. 9 plus 8 minus 6 is 11, which is 89 away from 100.
Now, all right. See, now you're just pulling that out of your ass.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the main event. Let's get ready to rumble!
What the hell are they doing now? I don't know.
For the war, against the war, who cares? 100 episodes!
I hate this town. I really, really do.
And that's right, everybody. Welcome to episode 100 of the Best Seat in the House podcast. Dan, how you doing today, buddy?
I'm doing good. Just a little bit getting through this cold weather. Pretty much testing out the layers for that big game we're attending on the 18th. It's getting close. Can you believe it's almost 20 days away?
I think I would like to get this first message in. This one we're going to start off with, Dan, is well wishes from a person from your O&A past. I mentioned that to you when I texted you that earlier today, and this is a guy that you've been on the Opie and Anthony show with many times. This is a guy who anybody who listened to the show for an extended period of time definitely knows this gentleman. He's still around today. He's still doing his show at SiriusXM today. The great Dr. Steve.
Hey, Bobo. It's your old pal, Dr. Steve from Weird Medicine. Congrats on your 100th episode of Best Seat in the House podcast with your partner, who I only know by Piazza 31 MV. So
I stupidly forgot to give him my name, but there we go.
I'm sure that's not their real name. Anyway, one of my favorite memories of Bobo, well, two of them. Obviously, the Patrice game, and it was just Patrice's reaction to Daniel being told different stories, and they had different reaction in his body, blood flow going to different parts of his body, depending on whether they were talking about the Mets or some hot girl. So that was brilliant. But honestly, hanging out with Bobo at Sirius XM, he schooled me on the history of the 5 boroughs. He had encyclopedic knowledge about the history of New York City, the boroughs themselves, the sports teams. I was very impressed. So, perfect person to have on a sports podcast, because he has obsessive knowledge about the Mets in particular. So enjoyed hanging out with Bobo very much. And I think the other thing is, when I had my prostate simulator there, didn't Bobo walk off with that thing? I think that's true. I remember I had to say something on Twitter about getting my prostate simulator back. But I actually, in the end, I think E-Rock copped to the fact that he'd actually let you have it. So it was fine. But I always wondered why someone would want something like that if they weren't in the medical profession. A mystery that will never be answered. Anyway, Bobo, take care. You guys have a great 100th episode, and congrats again.
The great Dr. Steve.
Yeah, that was just a funny thing. Like, I can tell you actually that whole thing about that. I just thought it was funny to just take silly pictures with my dog reacting to this thing that he used on the show. I just thought it was funny. That was just funny to just take silly pictures with Rosie Malunigan that time.
That's pretty funny, man. That's it's funny that he remembered that too, and just the little thing about knowing all the trivia from the 5 boroughs. Very, very cool and thoughtful video from the great Dr. Steve. That we could not have asked for more, right?
Yeah. I just have to thank Dr. Steve for that little video. He is definitely one of the greatest people I've gotten to know. I'm glad to have gotten to know Dr. Steve, and any like fluid, I keep thinking of that whole bit fluid.
To Best Seat in the House podcast, the great Joey Lucchese.
Hey, what's up, Rob and Bobo? This is Joey Lucchese, New York Mets pitcher, number 47. Just want to say, hey, what's up, and hope you guys are doing well. I hear you guys are going to have your 100th episode of your podcast. I wouldn't mind joining it, or just sending you a message, or whatever you guys are comfortable with. Yeah. I heard you guys are diehard Mets fans. I appreciate the support. I know it's not the kind of year you wanted last year, but hopefully it's better this year, Just got to keep the faith, and I'm obviously going to try my best and have a great 2024, brand new season. So hope you have a great one, guys.
There we go. The great Joey Lucchese sending us some well wishes there. Dan, what do you think about Joey Fuego?
That is, I just can't believe that the first time we've gotten a baseball player to acknowledge us. That's
a good point
on the show. That's just freaking neat. I swear, if I ever get the chance, I would thank him personally in person if I ever crossed paths with him at a game or something, because that is just freaking neat that he did that for us.
What's up, everybody? This is Daniel Bobo Curlin here, co-host of Best Seat in the House podcast with my good pal Robert Cramer. And as you can see right now here in the background, I'm at the Pro Football Hall of Fame in Canton, Ohio. And I can tell you, there's a lot of anticipation for myself getting to visit this museum. Even this music that sounds like it's from one of those iconic NFL highlight films that we love is really building the anticipation. And I'm going to share with you some highlights of my visit to the Pro Football Hall of Fame right here. And don't forget while you're at it, don't forget to like and subscribe to our podcast.
This is the earliest pro football equipment. Look at how this is been a leather. This is what they put in this. And who knew that my hometown, New York City, had the first professional Super Bowl. We just had an NFL championship game. Before that, the team with the best record was considered the champion. Take a look at this little thing. This is Bob, or whatever the heck it's called. This is what they gave what the members of that championship team got. Far cry from the fancy rings we get. Who knew the first attempt at face protection on NFL helmets looked like something out of that creepy episode of Doctor Who with the one with that gas mask. Every player whose jersey as you can see in these videos and wearing. This was also his jersey. An LT jersey was the very first Giants jersey I ever had. This was a gift from my late father. Bill Parcells. This guy here got the best out of everything. Gotta get props to him. The big tune himself.
Special guest tonight, Karl Hamburger from WAPT. Thank you so much for joining us, Karl.
Thanks for having me, guys. Happy to be here. Good to see you. I met Bobo at Compound Media many years ago, and it's good to see you again, buddy.
Yep, I remember that. I think it was probably a couple of weeks before that lockdown stuff happened, if my memory's correct.
Well, it was 2018, so yeah, a couple of weeks before the pandemic, yeah.
Just a few weeks.
Oh no, maybe a couple of years.
Yeah.
I don't know. I've been there so many times that sometimes it's hard to keep track of every specific day I met everyone.
I don't take offense to it, Bobo. I don't take offense. It's all okay.
But I do remember meeting you at Compound Media once.
Yes, I was very excited to see you. I've told this story before, but we were in the green room area, and they have a little water cooler there, and Bobo comes up and he starts pouring himself a water, and I'm standing there, and this is before he knew that I was a guest on the Anthony Cumia show. So I'm standing there, I go, "Hey, Bobo, I'm a huge fan. My name's Karl," and you like big time me, you're like, "Okay, whatever," and he brushed me off. And then you saw that I was on Anthony's show, and then all of a sudden I was cool and you could talk to me. So it's okay. I don't mind. I don't mind getting big time because you are a much bigger celebrity than me in that scenario.
Actually, it wasn't really the case for that reason. It's just me. I was just trying to drink some water before the show because I drink a lot of water because of my plumbing.
Okay, good answer.
Fair enough.
Yes.
Well, Karl, the reason why I became aware of your podcast too was from your appearances on Compound Media and everything, and just I really just fell in love with the way you run a show, and obviously your infamous interactions with Opie and Stut Joe and everything. And the one thing I did want to ask you though too, before we get into a little bit of the sports, because as you know, this is our New York sports podcast.
Sure.
We have to touch on a little bit of this Dabbleverse nonsense. And I just wanted to ask you, did you ever think when all this started that you would be in a blood feud with Stuttering John Melendez?
Definitely not. I remember when we first reviewed his show, and it was episode 109. So we'd already reviewed 108 other podcasts, and we make fun of them, and then we move on, and it's, whatever. And so we did Stuttering John's episode, and John was very upset about it. And I remember years later him saying, "I don't know why you didn't just invite me on your show, Karl. If we could have just had a show together." And it's like, I didn't want you on my show. That wasn't the point. I wanted to play clips of your show, similar to like Jocktober from the Opie and Anthony show. Just wanted to play some clips, and then we move on. But, just like how Scott Shannon eventually ended up on the Opie and Anthony show, I eventually ended up actually having interviews and conversations with Stuttering John directly, something I never planned on nor necessarily wanted to have happen. It's all surprising to me.
Yeah. The way it all turned out, just absolutely crazy.
Yes.
And what were you going to say, Dan?
Yeah, that kind of circumstance happens unexpectedly. I mean, I'll tell you a good example. You guys, I feel like you guys, I could tell that you guys were probably influenced by one of the greatest and most underrated TV shows of all time, is Street Fighter 3000. Well, there was a little story I remember reading about I remember seeing an interview with Mike Nelson, who was one of the guys from the show, right? And he's talking about how when they did an episode when they riffed the movie Mitchell, right? And that
one of the best episodes ever.
Yep, and they also riffed another one of his movies, Joe Don Baker's movies, Final Justice. Well, they talked about one time that he encountered Joe Don Baker at a hotel, and the guy threatened to attack him. Like apparently he didn't take it so well that they were riffing one of his work on screen.
Well, that's a great point, Bobo, because as we've been goofing on podcasts, I call it roasting. It's a roast style podcast that we do. We have people who take it very well and have gone on to be friends of the show and come on and co-host with me, and we've collaborated on a bunch of things. A lot of examples of that. And then we've had just the opposite. People get very upset with me and try to ruin my life, or try to get a bunch of people on to take us down. So yes, there's a couple different ways that you can respond to this. And I would say that not getting in on the joke is probably the bad way to do it.
Yeah, exactly. Boy, it's best to go the more to use another MSC3K analogy, go the more Joe Estevez route and have fun with it.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. And I think you even mentioned on the show a couple weeks ago when this really started to get ratcheted up with Stuttering John that, you've been goofing on Opie for years now, and it's never gotten to this level because he never directly came at you in the same way that Stuttering John has. And I think as much as we can be critical of Opie, you have to give him credit that he's at least taken it somewhat in stride, unlike Stuttering John.
Yeah, Opie is a professional. John doesn't understand how to act like a professional. And so when Opie and Anthony were going after all these radio shows and they were developing this fan base that were passionate, they called them the Pests, and these guys would go after the shows and get their Facebook pages taken down and all this stuff. I think both Opie, Anthony, probably Jim too, they all realized like this could all turn on us someday. And it kind of did. And so I think Opie was always ready for this to happen, and he knows not to engage. The worst thing you can do is engage. And so when it comes to Opie, he's brought me up a few times. He's talked about me a little bit here and there, but for the most part, he pretends we don't exist. Probably the best way to go about it, because we've never engaged in his wife, his kids, like anything like that, whereas John talks about this shit all the time. And so now people are going after his mom, you see that with the Uncle Rico show, and they're going through his divorce papers. They're going through all this stuff. It's because John brings all this stuff onto himself. He keeps bringing it up and engaging with all the haters. And this is what you're going to get when you're trying to take on thousands of people on the internet all at once. So you're not going to win that battle.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're setting yourself up for failure there.
Yes.
And you mentioned the whole O&A universe and everything, and all three of us were big fans of that. Obviously, Bobo became a big part of it. Yes. And I just wanted to ask you too, we just had Dr. Steve on recently, and he was sharing a couple of his favorite Bobo memories or bits from the show. I just wanted to ask you, what were some of the iconic bits that stood out to you with Bobo on the show?
Well, I mean, obviously the Patrice O'Neal baseball bit was one of the greatest of all time. But I would say my favorite was when Bobo was the $10,000 fugitive.
Yeah, I still remember that one. That one still makes me laugh.
Because the fugitive bit was one of my favorites of all time. Like that was part of the Jocktober thing. And
that's literally what inspired me to do a parody of that bit. Like I'm just hearing this, and I just figured, oh, these guys will get a laugh at me parodying this bit. Like I just thought of the whole idea to parody it, and they just turned it into something else. Like
it was great. Well, they're geniuses, and they did a good job utilizing your very many talents, Bobo. But the fugitive bit was this. People don't know. Opie and Anthony would go around the country listening to different morning shows. So you'd be in Wisconsin one day and then Pennsylvania the next and all these different markets. And what they found out was all these morning shows get the same bits from the same services, Prep Burger or whatever it was, that was feeding them these bits to do. And so you think you have this morning show you listen to on your way into work every day, and they're coming up with all this stuff. It's actually the same bits that the same people are hearing across the country on different radio shows. So the fugitive was this horrible gimmick they had where you could win $10,000 if you could figure out who the 98.9 WPXY FM fugitive was, or whatever the stupid call letters were. And so it was always the same in every market. And it was great because you'd listen to Jocktober, and Sam Roberts would bring in the clips and say, okay, today we're going to be in Minnesota, and here's the show we're listening to. And then they'd go into the fugitive bit. It's immediately just hilarious. He's like, oh, we've already heard this 3 times this month coming from different radio shows. So, Bobo, you were great on that.
Yeah, definitely. And another one of my favorite parts about when they would do the Jocktober bit was I used to, sometimes I'd be listening later in the day, but there'd be times that I'd be lucky enough that I'd be listening live. If I was listening live, I would immediately go on my computer to go on the Facebook page of the whatever show they were riffing on, because I knew there was going to be some funny stuff on that Facebook page back then.
So that one of my favorite things to do too during Jocktober, and this was back when Facebook was different than it is now, where people would go on these morning shows, would have their own Facebook page, the radio station would have one, the morning show would have one, and people would go on and just start posting onto their page directly, and there'd be some pornographic stuff, but the funniest were you would have Hulk Hogan taking down the Twin Towers on 9/11.
That was my favorite.
Those are the funniest
Sam
photos.
Robert's reaction to that, just hearing Sam almost crying, laughing, just I hadn't even seen the picture yet, and I was crying laughing. And then when you see it, it's even funnier.
Oh, it's hysterical. He's just giving the leg drop to the Twin Towers. It's brutal.
And the look when they all kept saying, "I did this for you."
Yeah.
Very, very funny. Yeah, that's definitely one of the most iconic ones of all time. Love that Jocktober bit. And Karl, honestly, I love that you're keeping it alive. You know, I always wished when Ant first went to Compound that those first few years, I wish that, you know, at least for the month of October, maybe one day a week, bring over like Jimmy and Sam and try to keep that legacy going. But I guess for whatever reason, that's difficult to work out. And, you know, but just the fact that you grabbed the horns and kept it going and kept the legacy of Jocktober alive. I love that, man. You have a great show. And, you know, I just love the fact that you keep it going.
Well, thanks, Rob. It's interesting. When we started the podcast in 2016, it was me and my buddy Kevin. Kevin and I used to play in a band together. We grew up together. And then he moved out to Seattle. And so we were keeping in touch. He was a stand-up comic too. We were keeping in touch, doing different projects together. And then we talked about, like, let's start a podcast. He wanted to start a podcast. I go, yeah, I'd love to do that. I'm a big morning radio guy, but I listen to afternoon radio, sports talk, political talk. I was into all that stuff. So I said, yeah, let's do a podcast. And we were brainstorming, what could our podcast be about? And I had the idea. I go, you know, my favorite bit was Jocktober. And there's so many bad podcasts out there. This is going back to 8 years ago. So think about what the landscape is now, but even back then, it's like everyone's making their own shitty podcast. And we really started off with a mix of celebrity shows, but also just kind of nobody's putting together podcasts. But back then it was more so guys you never heard of, people you never heard of, trying to make podcasts, because that was more of the landscape back then. So it was a field day. It was so easy to goof on all these people who were making these shows.
Yeah, exactly. It was like shooting fish in a barrel, as they say. And
for sure.
And,
I mean, it's similar to the Jocktober bit, because these morning shows are so bad. We've gone through, and we've actually adopted now every October. We do kind of a Jocktober theme where we either play radio shows or shows that used to be on the radio who moved over to podcasting. So it's all these like hack radio DJs. Hey, we got a caller coming in.
Yeah. Oh my God. So just just absolutely great. Absolutely love you know, your show WATP. And you know, obviously too, you're the front man for the Isotopes. You know, you guys I was listening to you know, some of your stuff the other day. You know, you guys how long have you been together you know, as a band, the Isotopes? Because I was listening to you guys have great stuff. I don't know what Stuttering John's talking about.
Well, I appreciate that. I've been playing in the Isotopes. I'm the founding member. I've been playing in that band since 2001. So I think we're on our 23rd year. The lineup has changed.
Well,
the lineup has changed quite a bit.
congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. It's a different band than it was when we started. But yeah, we've kept the Isotopes going for all that time, and I do appreciate that. It's an instrumental rock band. You can find us wherever you stream music. Theisotopes.com is also where you can go to find more information on that.
Absolutely, man. And make sure to check out all of Karl's stuff. And also go to his Patreon too, because if you want to see some great stuff, and that's not including Stuttering John's audiobook, you can subscribe to his Patreon and get all of his great content. Absolutely. Very affordable a month. So do yourself a favor, check that out. And you know, Karl,
Rob. We do 2 bonus episodes every single month on our Patreon. It also supports the show. You can also watch us do the shows live, which most people, you have to wait for the clips to come out on YouTube, or you listen to the podcast audio, which is great. But if you want to watch us do it live on YouTube, sign up for our Patreon, and then you can watch us every Wednesday and Saturday.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And you know, Karl, the one thing too, I was really pulling for to get us back into a little bit of sports here as we come up on the Super Bowl. I was really pulling, and look, I'm a Jets fan. I'm from Long Island. I grew up a Jets fan right down the street from Hofstra University, where they used to practice. So I never really had any great feelings about your Buffalo Bills.
Understood.
But man, I was rooting for you guys this year, and that's probably why you lost. And you know, I was rooting for them to pull it out. Nobody wanted to see the Chiefs go back. And Josh Allen is just such a likable, you know, winning quarterback that, you know, how could you root against the guy?
Thank you. I totally agree with you on that. It was heartbreaking the way they lost against the Chiefs. We finally got the game in Buffalo, finally got to play at home field. And the fact that, and I made the joke the next day on my show, The Creep Off, I go, yeah, I didn't watch the game last night because it was a rerun. Because just for our kicker to go wide right and lose the game when it comes down to that, it's just so depressing. And they played so well. And, Patrick Mahomes, I think, is also a very likable guy and obviously a great quarterback, but I'm just sick of him. It's too much. On every commercial, him and Kelsey, they're on every commercial. They've been in, 4 of the last 6 Super Bowls. It's just enough. I mean, this matchup, I think a lot of people were rooting for Detroit-Buffalo. I know I was. Because that would have been so much more interesting for two teams that just don't get there ever to be in the big game together. Would have been nice.
Yeah, same thing here. As a matter of fact, I have to admit I'm also annoyed by the Chiefs. As a matter of fact, I've been calling out. Sometimes I jokingly, if I walk by somewhere and I'm seeing like some female wearing a Chiefs hat or something, I keep calling out the fake ones.
Yeah. I was just down in Florida. We have a place down there, and so we were hanging out in Florida. And you can't believe how many Chiefs fans there are. I swear to God, 10 years ago, this did not exist. I knew like one Chiefs fan my entire life, and now there's like just millions of them everywhere. It's so annoying.
Yeah, I know. I've been comparing the Chiefs fans that are just really Swifties to what I used to see in high school with these girls that were wearing Yankee stuff, and I knew, and almost all the times I figured, yeah, they just probably wearing that stuff because they have a crush on Jeter, and I used to call them out on it all the time. Like,
right.
I used to ask them stuff that I knew. I used to know which ones were the actual fans and which ones weren't. And there was one that turned out to be an actual fan. So I figured, just as apologize for all that trying to call her out. My mother knew someone who like worked security or something. I hooked her up with some nice tickets. So
nice. And what did she do for you, Bobo? Did you get anything in return for that?
Actually, at that time, that was someone that was already in a relationship. But I just wanted to be but I just knew I had to be nice for calling her out on being a fake Yankee fan when I realized that she actually was a fan. Since I knew someone that had to hook up with tickets, I just felt I had to be courteous.
It's very nice of you, Bobo. I'm glad that you realized that you were in the wrong and you needed to make amends for it. I'll tell you a real quick story. It's not that interesting, but I have been a lifelong Cubs fan. And the reason for that is because WGN, the superstation, was on our cable networks in the early and mid 80s. The Cubs didn't have lights in their stadium. So almost every afternoon, the Cubs were on TV. I loved baseball. I got into the Cubs. They were a good team back then, whatever. So I've been a Cubs fan all my life. 2016 comes. The Cubs win the World Series. Something I never thought I'd live for or live through. It was so exciting. And I remember going to a Buffalo Sabres game not long after that, and I'm wearing my Cubs hat, and the security guy goes, oh, everyone's a Cubs fan now. I'm like, motherfucker, if you know, with Bartman and all the shit that I've gone through being a Cubs fan, and now you're going to call me out and act like I'm a bandwagoner? Fuck that.
Yeah. If you're wearing a Cubs hat, there really aren't too many bandwagon Cubs fans. I'm sure there were a bunch in 2016, but come on, anybody wearing a Cub hat, they're I don't know, especially
lovable losers. They were always the lovable losers. They're not the Dodgers. They're not like
exactly
the Red Sox, right?
The funny thing is, speaking of Bartman, there was one time I was in Chicago and I got mistaken for Steve Bartman.
Oh, I could see that. Yeah, I could see that. In fact, I want to beat you up right now because of that.
They thought I was wearing some disguise or something because I'm wearing a Mets shirt, right? And they thought I was Bartman in disguise.
Hiding. I like the Mets. Yeah.
And I just pulled out an ID, my ID covering the part with the address and name, and I'm saying, see, look, the name and the date of birth. I'm a bit too young to be Steve Bartman.
Right. So this is a sports show. Everyone's sports fans here, so I can go a little bit into this. Now,
please,
as a Cubs fan and watching that game and being so invested in that team, the Cubs had a great team. We're 5 outs away from the World Series. First time in my lifetime, obviously. And, everyone was very, Moses Alou reacted the way that he did when Bartman interfered with the ball that would have probably landed in Moses Alou's glove, and there would have been the second out of the 8th inning. I don't blame Bartman at all. And I get annoyed with Chicago Cubs fans who do, because if you go back and you watch the replay, every fan around him had their hands up to catch that ball. It's a natural reaction. You don't think like, hey, hold on a second, guys, let's not interfere, because we don't want to catch a fucking souvenir during the NLCS at Wrigley Field. You know, like, you don't think that way. You're like, hey, the ball's coming to me. Let's go. So I never blame Bartman. I felt bad for him. Everyone's throwing drinks at him. He had to be escorted out, and I don't think he's been back to the stadium since, but it's too bad.
Actually,
well, I don't
I've
think
heard
he was back to the stadium. Yeah, what were you gonna say, Dan? Because I'm thinking
actually,
the same
I remember
thing.
seeing an article. He was actually back. He's been invited back a couple of times, and surprisingly, ownership gave him a World Series ring. He actually has a World Series ring.
That's, I mean, like I said, I don't blame him, but I'm not giving him a fucking World Series ring. The fuck? That's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's like when the Red Sox gave Buckner, the World Series ring after they finally won in 2004. So I guess it's kind of like burying the hatchet, but still, it doesn't make up for the years in between.
Did the Cubs give a goat the World Series ring too? What the fuck?
The only problem is, unlike Steve Bartman, that goat's been long dead.
That's true. Yes, good point.
Well, in 2016, when the Cubs finally won, they were probably like Oprah, giving out, you get a World Series ring, you get a World Series ring, just because they finally got that monkey off their back.
Yeah, one of the things that made me laugh, unfortunately, there wasn't a game going on when I was in Chicago at the time, but I did have a couple of drinks at this bar by the stadium called Murphy's Bleachers, and I just couldn't help but laugh. I'm saying, I can't believe in Chicago they named a bar near Wrigley Field, of all places, a bar named that has the same name as the name of that goat. That just made me laugh. They would actually name a bar Murphy's Bleachers that's at that specific location.
Well, I gotta say, I never bought in on the goat curse. That whole thing's folklore. It's bullshit.
Yeah, I know. I agree with you on that. It always seemed like they were kind of grasping at straws.
Yeah.
Like the Yankees had the Curse of the Bambino.
Curse of the Bambino for the Red Sox makes sense. Like, that's a thing that you could be like, yeah, that was a dumb move. But some guy bringing a goat in, they wouldn't let him in. He's like, well, then you'll never win again. It's like, no, don't bring your goat to the stadium, idiot.
And nobody wants to be near your goat.
Yeah.
What kind of person would bring a goat into their stadium?
Well, nowadays, people bring fucking animals everywhere for emotional support. But back then, that didn't exist. I'm like, what are you doing? Leave your goat at home.
That's true. That's true, man. And, Karl, I wanted to ask you, too. Obviously, before you mentioned the Super Bowl 25, going back to Norwood and the Giants. Obviously, Dan's a Giant fan. I was a little too young,
and I'm wearing a jersey that era, by the way.
It's got the LT jersey on.
Nice.
And
I just have to point that out.
I was just wondering, how old were you during that, and how much did that affect you as a Bills fan? At such a young age.
I'll be honest with you. So I grew up here in Bills country. Everyone's a big Bills fan. And then those teams with the K-Gun, Jim Kelly, and Thurman Thomas, and all those guys, that it was a huge deal in this part of the country. But I was not as big a football fan back then. I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, I don't know how you guys feel about this. I've always been a big baseball fan, big hockey guy. I played soccer when I was younger. I was really into that. So while I was a Bills fan and watching that game, I didn't care as much about football back then as I do now. I don't think football is a sport for children. It's too complex. There's too much going on. The rules are too complex. I mean, women can't figure it out. I don't think kids can. But were you as into football when you were in junior high as you are now?
I agree with you, because the older I got, and it also came from playing it. Like, once I was playing it in junior high and high school, then I kind of got more of a better understanding of it. But yeah, I agree. When I was younger, although I knew I was a Jets fan, most of the time I was watching the game, I had no idea what the hell was going on.
Yeah, I remember a lot of times my dad and my brother be sitting down and watching the Bills game every Sunday, and I just wanted to go out and play with my friends. We'd play football in the backyards. And actually, my school didn't have a football team. I went to a high school where soccer was the main fall sport. So I played soccer. Wow. We did not have football. And the rumor, I don't know if this is true or not, but there was some kind of terrible injury that happened at my school. decades prior, and so they just got rid of the football program. So I didn't really learn the sport. I wasn't going to my high school games. I wasn't playing on the team, so I didn't really learn the sport until I was older. So yeah, I wasn't as into it. With all that said, I want to point this out about Super Bowl 25. People like to blame Scott Norwood. Again, not Scott Norwood's fault. It should not have come down to a 47-yard field goal at the end of the game. The Bills had a much better team than the Giants. The Bills got outcoached. And everyone loves Marv Levy, and everyone praises Marv Levy around here in the Buffalo area. But he got outcoached that game, and his team was not disciplined. If you remember, they went on that 4 Super Bowl run where they lost, and the Giants game was the only close one. The other ones, they all got blown out. These guys were going to the city for the Super Bowl and partying all week. Thurman Thomas lost his helmet before the fucking game for one of the Super Bowls. It's just like, what are you guys doing? You're playing in the biggest game of your lives. Can you fucking take it seriously? What's going on here?
Yeah, and I think that year going into the Giants Super Bowl too, that was the AFC Championship game that they beat the Raiders like 52-3. So I really can't even.
They were a dominant.
Can't even blame them.
It's crazy.
You know, why wouldn't you be cocky?
Who was the defensive coordinator for the Giants that year? Do you know?
Belichick, right?
I believe that was Bill Belichick.
And they held the Bills to 19 points, and that was an explosive. You know, that was I could be wrong about this, but from my memory of it, they were one of the first teams that did the no huddle offense throughout the entire game. You know, Peyton Manning perfected it, but Jim Kelly was doing it, and he was calling the plays. I miss the days when you let the quarterback call the play on the field, because they're the ones who know what's going on. They're watching how the defense is playing them, and they know their personnel and everything. So Jim Kelly would call the plays on the field, and they were so explosive, and they scored so many points. And the fact that the Bill Belichick and the Giants, Bill Parcells, that Giants defensive coaching staff figured out a way to stop them. Again, I think that was the Bills getting outcoached in that game.
Yeah, I'm with you on that too. That's yeah, you know, when you got the combination of Belichick and Parcells, that's tough to get around, man.
it's a young Belichick. I mean, obviously this was before he was a head coach of the Browns. It was before he won all the Super Bowls, but the guy obviously knows football.
Yeah, especially defense too.
Yeah.
Yep, exactly. I feel like that Bill Parcells lineage was like probably one of the greatest coaching lineages, because you had 2 coaches that had some really big legacies that came out of that Parcells lineage. You had of course Bill Belichick, and you had Tom Coughlin. Those 2 Super Bowls, including one that they defeated a team that people thought no one could beat, that undefeatable Patriots team, and they pulled off that one big upset that I will still remind Patriots fans of to this day. Like, I will still, every Patriots fan I know, I will find a funny way to remind them of that game. Like, I'll either do this, I'll show them a picture of the Daily News, I'll show them a picture of the ticket from the City Hall ceremony. I got to sit right in front of the steps of City Hall to see the ceremony there. I've even sometimes gone to the other Super Bowl that the Giants beat the Patriots at. I'll show them my ticket stub from Super Bowl 46.
No,
Dan, I feel like you're bragging. I was waiting for that.
I had it ready to go for you. I had that.
I'm sorry, I stepped on it.
No, you're fine. So, all right, let me ask you about this. So, you think about that game where the 18-0, or was it? Yeah, 18-0 Patriots come in. They're going to be the first team to be 19-0 win a Super Bowl, which would have been the only thing I would have liked about that is the 72 Dolphins would have shut the fuck up and moved down with their lives. But whatever, so you had that game, and the Giants have the big upset there. So, in your opinion, Bobo, as a Giants fan, is Eli Manning a Hall of Fame quarterback?
I just feel like he is a Hall of Fame quarterback. That guy he always had a way of rising up in those big spots.
Oh, he had a lot of bad games. He had a lot of bad seasons with that team. But when you play well in 2 Super Bowls, that does go a long way for sure.
Yeah. That just like defines the legacy. Like, it's one thing to have the, but where the money is at those big spots, and that's where it's at. And
but without David Tyreek, though, he's not winning that game, right? Is that his name?
True.
I have to give credit for him for making that play at that big spot. Yeah, that I nearly caused my I didn't have Mr. Malunigan yet for that Super Bowl. This one was at my living room, but Rosie Shea was still around then. She was still alive, and she was just practically a puppy back then. She was barking when I.
Oh, I bet you were screaming quite a bit, but I'm just glad that you made a Mr. Malunigan reference. That made me happy. I checked off the bingo board over here.
Of course, Super Bowl 46, Mr. Malunigan was around a Rosie, but I was at the Super Bowl, so they were with my neighbor who invited me to go.
How were you getting tickets to the Super Bowl? What's going on over there? You got
I'll
all
tell
these
you the story.
connections.
I'll tell you that story. It was my neighbor and his father. With him was their Giants fans, right? So we're watching the NFC Championship game, right? We're celebrating, right? And I'm saying, yeah, we're going to the Super Bowl. We're celebrating. Then he tells me, I'll say, by the way, Daniel, you're going to the Super Bowl with me and my father. And I says, what do you mean? And apparently they booked a package. They had pre-booked through the Giants website, a travel package in case the Giants got to the Super Bowl, they would be going, right? They booked a spot for me to go with them to that game. So they just told me right as soon as they wanted, I was going to be going with them. I don't know how much his father paid for this package.
Do you realize what the life that you've lived? You're like Boris Gump. I can't believe the experiences you've had in life and being connected to the Opie and Anthony show for all those years. You're going to Super Bowls. What the fuck? What do you do for a living, Bobo?
I've worked mostly moving jobs where we get storage places, but I load a UPS truck. Wow. I load a UPS truck.
What a life you've lived. I hope you appreciate it, buddy.
Yep, that's true. I'm probably the luckiest person in that entire warehouse, that UPS warehouse.
Yes, I'm sure that's true. I'm sure that's true.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah. Unless you're working with like Eric the actor or something. Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, no doubt about that, man. And Dan, too. Also, I mean, that was the same Super Bowl that Eastside Dave was at too, right?
Yeah, that was the same Super Bowl, and I didn't realize until after he was at that Super Bowl. And I could tell you a little story about that. Speaking of Dave, and that iconic, what I consider the greatest Super Bowl song ever. On the plane, as we're taxiing, I'm queuing that song up on my phone, and we're listening to it. And me, and my friend, we're sitting and we're singing along to the song, right? And I see a couple of people on the plane dancing as this plane was acting. They're all dancing to the song.
Bobo, what Super Bowl song are you talking about? Because there's only one greatest Super Bowl song. What are you talking about?
I'm talking about this little song that Eastside Dave did called "Fuck Tom Brady."
Oh, okay. I gotcha. All right. Yes.
And right, this was a song leading up to that Super Bowl. Dave's a fellow Giants fan. I just started spontaneously pulling up my phone and playing that song, and my friend has seen the video. He had seen the video before, and he was feeling it. So we're like playing that, and we're just singing it, and we're dancing, and a couple of people on the plane are dancing as well.
Nice. So this is not as great a story as that by any means, but you just reminded me. Speaking of being at the same game and not realizing it, if you guys remember the first game of the season last year, the Bills went to the LA Rams, the Super Bowl champion LA Rams, to play in LA for the Thursday night game. So my wife and I went out to that game. We watched the Bills win 30-10. And I found out after the fact that Gino Bisconti was there. I'm like, what the fuck, Gino? We would have hung out. We were hanging out the whole time, celebrating. He was rooting for the Bills there, and I'm bummed that we didn't know he was there at the time.
Yeah, really. I mean, especially at a Rams game too. If it was the Chargers, you'd expect it, but for the Rams, I mean, come on.
I know. I was very surprised he was there.
Very cool.
Sometimes you run into people you don't expect it.
Right.
That's how I actually met Bobo at the Opie and Anthony Unmasked at Caroline's.
No shit.
With Ron Bennington.
Yep, he met me. What happened was after that game, it was close to around the time there was a Rangers playoff game starting that time. So we were good. He happened to be going to a place to watch the playoff game right after. So we ended up watching that game together right after that taping of the Ron Bennington Unmasked. Which, by the way, when I still have that poster. That was like I feel like that's the last time a live audience got to see all three of them together, and it's hard to believe I was a part of that.
All right,
and
Bobo, I got a question for you on this. This is interesting to me. So, have you had Anthony sign that poster?
All three of them signed that poster. It was they were actually signing that. They were broadcasting their show like normal before that taping in their studio, and apparently I was hearing on the show in between commercial breaks, they were mentioning it in between commercial breaks, that the whole show, as they're doing their show, they're signing a bunch of these posters, a ton of them, like a truckload, whatever amount they printed out, they autographed each and every one of them. So if you were there, you got one of these posters, and apparently they had some extras. Because I noticed one of my friends who works for the Mets single A affiliate over in Brooklyn, who works for the team. I was once talking to him, and he was telling me he happens to have one of those, and he wasn't even there, and he got a hold of one of those.
What's your relationship with Opie these days? Maybe not these days, but what happened after the show broke up? Did you stay in touch with Opie at all?
Well, the last time I saw all three of them together was the last time I've actually ever seen Opie. That guy literally, it seems like he forgot he freaking knows me, or he acts like he doesn't know me. It's like weird. Like I hardly recognize the guy anymore. It's like, no way this is the same person that I remember during those days.
Yeah, it's interesting. Okay. What about Jim Norton? Do you talk to him, or have you done anything with him?
Oh, Jimmy, I see plenty of times. I've been on Chip Chipperson shows. I've seen him at a couple.
Oh, that's right.
That's right. I've gone to a stand-up. I hear from Jimmy. I hear from Sam. I hear from a number of the staff at Jim and Sam, and I visited their shows.
Oh, cool.
I visited their show. I visited their show a couple of times. So I do hear from them quite a bit.
Cool. So just Opie's the only asshole. That's what I thought. That makes sense.
Yeah,
the story checks out.
Yeah, he's the only one I haven't heard from since then.
Yep.
That seems to check out. That makes sense. But Karl, listen, you've been so gracious with your time. Before we get you out of here, I just want to, if you guys are both up for it, how about a little Bobo versus Karl Super Bowl trivia?
All right.
All right. Let's try this. Kramer's gonna put up the old marquee bit. I don't know if you know about WFAN. They would do this Super Bowl contest, and Mad Dog Mike during Mike and the Mad Dog, and Mad Dog would put on this wig and call himself the marquee while they answered it. Mike asked the questions.
Sounds good. Let's
exactly. I'm doing my best, Christopher Mad Dog Russo, and let's see. All right, who wants to go first? Karl, you are our guest, so I will give you the option.
I'll go first.
Karl will go first. All right. So, question number 1. What team has played in 4 Super Bowls but never held a lead?
Interesting. So I know it's not the Bills, just because of the Giants game. So maybe the Minnesota Vikings?
That's correct, Karl. The Minnesota Vikings. There we go.
Oh,
thank you for the sound effect.
Nice.
There you go.
I didn't
Karl
realize they never. I knew they lost 4. I didn't realize they never held a lead. That's brutal.
Yeah, I didn't know that either, and I thought I had things bad as a Jets fan. But let's see. All right, Dan. So now you're up. Karl leads 1-0. Let's go. What team has participated in the most Super Bowl games?
I'm gonna guess the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Can I steal if he gets it wrong? How does this work?
Yeah, you can steal. Why not?
Is he wrong?
All right, Dan, that is incorrect. It is not the Pittsburgh Steelers.
It's got to be the 49ers, right?
It's not the 49ers, actually. The correct answer is New England Patriots.
Oh, yeah, fuck. I'm such an idiot. Yeah, I should have realized that. It's been in the last 20 years.
Yeah, the Patriots, but they fly into the radar there. Everybody forgets they lost to the Bears, and everybody forgets about the loss in the 90s to the Packers and Favre. So they kind of fly under the radar there. All right, Karl's back up, leading 1-0. What city hosted the coldest Super Bowl ever?
I believe that would be, it would be Jersey. It would be the Giants-Jets stadium, right?
Believe it or not, no. The answer was New Orleans. The Jets-Giants Super Bowl was 43 degrees, I believe, at kickoff. This was 39 back in 1979.
It's an indoor stadium. It's indoors.
It was pre-Superdome.
Oh, no shit.
Yup,
Yeah,
and
pre-Superdome.
In one of the most unlikely places that would have that record, by the way.
Wow, all right.
Yeah, I was shocked about that too. So, throwing a little knowledge around here now. Which
I got it wrong.
All right, but you still have the lead, 1-0 right now. And Dan, you're up. What was the first wild card team to win the Super Bowl?
The first wild card team to win the Super Bowl. I'm gonna guess the Raiders.
That's correct. The 1980 Oakland Raiders getting it done. Great job there.
Dan Madden coaching the Raiders to Super Bowl?
No, that was the first one after Madden.
Okay.
I forget who their coach was that year. But yeah, absolutely. Great call, Dan. All right, so it's tied up 1-1. Karl, you are back up right now. And who holds the record for the most passing yards in a single Super Bowl?
Oh, man. I feel like this is probably pretty modern.
Definitely.
Although it could be the best team on turf, but no, I'm going to say it's going to be either Mahomes or Brady. I'm going to go with Patrick Mahomes.
Oh, you were right. It was either Mahomes or Brady, but the answer was Tom Brady. He threw over 500 yards in the loss to the Eagles.
No shit.
Yeah. So, all right, we are still at 1-1 right now. And Dan, you are up. Who has the most career passing yards without a Super Bowl ring?
Passing yards without a Super Bowl ring. I'm gonna guess Terrell Owens.
No, for quarterbacks.
For quarterback. I'm gonna guess. I'm trying to think. Jim Kelly.
Jim Kelly's not a bad guess, but it's actually Phillip Rivers. 63,440 yards.
Oh,
Super Bowl.
I thought you meant in a Super Bowl. In Super Bowls.
Oh no, it was just career
passing yards. I see. Okay.
Yeah, I probably fucked up the wording of that.
Yeah,
anyway,
no,
so.
that's okay. I thought Jim Kelly was a good guess too, because I'm thinking how many passing yards in Super Bowls without winning one. But okay.
That's true, like cumulative. Oh yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. So all right, Karl, you're back up 1-1. Which two teams have won the most Super Bowls?
Okay, this I have to get right. It's the Patriots.
The Patriots and
the 49ers.
No, it's not the 49ers. It is the Pittsburgh Steelers.
The Steelers, okay.
Yeah. Now you're right. The 49ers got 5. That's the same thing I thought, actually, too. I forgot about the Steelers winning their 6th one.
Yeah, the stupid 70s. I wasn't watching a lot of football in the 70s.
Yeah, Terry Bradshaw and his 4 rings did exactly.
I hate Terry Bradshaw. He sucks. The worst.
But the question is, do you like Greg Olson's impression of him?
Yes. Well, Terry Bradshaw's doing a Terry Bradshaw impression at this point.
I can't
watch Fox because of him.
I know. I agree with you on that. So 1-1, Dan, you are back up right now. And what is the highest score ever by one team in a Super Bowl? Most points scored by one team.
I'm gonna guess maybe it was the 2003 Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I remember that game was really one heck of a blowout.
Tampa Bay, that's a good guess. Tampa Bay scored 48 in that game, but the answer is 55 by the 49ers. Super Bowl, was it 24? I can't read no Roman numerals, I'm an idiot. I remember Bart Simpson from that episode when he put them all together and kind of figured out, oh, okay, it's Rocky IX, Adrian's Revenge. So, all right, now it's 1-1. And Karl, you are back up right now. Who was the first player to say, I'm going to Disney World after winning the Super Bowl?
90s, I'll go Kurt Warner.
Kurt Warner, not a bad guess, but the answer is actually right up Dan's alley. Phil Simms, the New York Giants.
Going back to the late 80s.
Yep. And there's a little fact about that commercial. They actually run two versions of that commercial. All of us that live on the East Coast, we see the players say, "I'm going to Disney World," but people that are closer to Disneyland out in the West Coast, their version, they say, "I'm going to Disneyland." And that begs the question, since they have Disney parks overseas now, do they do the commercials in different languages for the, like for the one in France? Do they have to do the commercial in France saying I'm going to the one in... I've always wondered that if they had to do that now.
Probably not, but good thought, though. Good thought.
All right, well, I came up with 5 questions each for both you guys, and this is the last one. 1-1 going to Dan. So Dan I have this last one and then a tiebreaker if he doesn't get it. So let's see. Dan, which player has the most career Super Bowl touchdowns?
I'm gonna guess Jerry Rice.
Jerry Rice, Dan, you got it on the last one. 8 touchdowns. Wow, you pulled that out at the last second. Dan, congratulations! You're the Super Bowl trivia champion.
Yep. How could I not? How could I not remember that one when one of my uncles used to be a security guard for the 49ers back in the day, and he always mentioned how he got to know Jerry Rice personally during that time. So how could I not remember that?
Well, I didn't know that little factoid, Dan, but I appreciate you letting it be known to us right now. Now, just to let you guys know too, the tiebreaker question was, who's the only player to ever catch and throw a touchdown in the same game? Do either of you guys have any idea who that could be?
Catch and throw in the same game. Gosh, I feel like I do know the answer to that. Yeah, I don't know. I can't think of it.
Nick Foles.
Oh, okay.
Nick Foles, just a couple of years ago. That Patriots. That was a wacky game. But hey, listen, Karl, we've taken way too much of your time. You've been so gracious. Thank you so much.
Fun,
for joining us today. As you know, we're both big fans of yours too. I know you've known Bo for a while too, so it's cool to have you on. And is there anything like to plug before you get out of here?
Yeah, guys, thanks for having me on. It's been fun. I don't get to talk sports very often on shows, so I appreciate it. Whoarethese.com is where you can go to find all the stuff about my show, all the links. All of our episodes are up there, but also, our YouTube link. You can watch the shows on there and all the different clips that we have. I also do a show called Who Are These Socials, Thursdays at 6 p.m. Eastern time on our YouTube channel. Who Are These Broadcasters is Tuesdays at 2 p.m. And then I do a show called The Creep Off. It's the only true crime show made for men. And thecreepoff.com is where you can go to find more info about that and watch the show every Monday at 1 p.m. Eastern on my channel or the Creep Off channel.
And make sure you watch it too. The Creep Off, you and Vinny, great combination. Love everything you guys do together. So please support Karl.
I appreciate
it. Subscribe to all his stuff. Go to waptlive.com. Check out all his stuff. Karl, you're the best. Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys.
Yep, thank you very much, Karl, for joining us today. But much appreciated. Definitely hope to see you next time you're in town.
Hey, Daniel Bobo Karl, once again, thank you for joining us for the best of the Best Seat in the House podcast 2024. Hope you're enjoying all of me and Cramer talking about all the great moments that happened in 2024. Here's some more of us for a minute. We're reliving all those great moments you got to see this year.
And that's right, everybody. Welcome back once again to another edition of the Best Seat in the House podcast. As always, I'm your host, Rob Kramer, joined by my co-host, Daniel Bobo Carlin, and our special guest today, Jim Cerny, from Forever Blue Shirts. And obviously, this is a guy that's been around the New York Rangers for years. So, Jim, we really appreciate you taking the time and coming on with us today.
Absolutely. You make me sound kind of old, but I was just doing an interview with Neil Smith last week, and we were reminiscing and we were like, wow, we've known each other for like 34, 35 years, you know? So yeah, I guess I've been around for a little bit, have a little history with the Rangers.
Exactly. But hey, that's not a bad thing too. And I loved that interview with Neil Smith, by the way. One of my favorite Rangers characters from the past. And obviously, he's got the hardware to back it up with the championship ring.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? He was spot on in when we were previewing the trade deadline here for the Rangers. He said, you got to be really, really cautious and careful if you're Chris Drury, because you've got such a good thing going this season. You're easily one of the top teams, not only in the East, but the entire NHL. Great chemistry in that room. You don't want to mess a good thing up. And he went back to 1994 when he said, we made all those trades at the deadline, but take a closer look. Stefan Matteau and Brian Noonan had already played for Mike Keenan. There was a history there. Glenn Anderson and Craig McTavish were former Edmonton Oilers. There were a bunch of former Edmonton Oilers that they had won, Stanley Cups with that were currently on the Rangers. And you fast forward to this deadline, and there's a little bit of that going on. They needed to fill the 3C role. They get Alex Wenberg, who kind of grew up, went to high school with Eric Gustafsson and Mika Zibanejad, played with Artemi Panarin in Columbus. So he knows some of the key characters on the team, has a relationship there. So, I like that that's the approach Chris Drury took. It didn't work what happened last trade deadline, right? Bringing in the bigger names and the superstars. Here, you're looking more for a fit. And again, going back to what Neil said, part of that is you don't want to mess up a good thing. You want to improve it, and you certainly needed to improve your depth and fill a couple holes in that lineup and roster. But you don't want to mess up a good thing. It's such a high wire act. So now we'll see if Chris Drury got it right.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned the Alex Wenberg deal, and I feel like after the last couple of years, Ranger fans, including myself, we've kind of gotten a little spoiled with the amount of deals that Drury has made going into the deadline. Obviously, the really splashy moves last year, and then the year before, just catching lightning in a bottle with Kopp and Vetrano and all those guys. But this year, I feel like Alex Wenberg is almost being underappreciated by the Ranger fans, because I feel like we thought that it was going to be the first of a couple of moves to happen. But, even though they did get into a couple other guys that we'll get into in a second, I feel like Alex Wenberg fits into this team perfectly on that third line. He's really going to improve the team defense, and just having him out there, this is a guy that's got a little bit of skill he can add to. And, I feel like if they do keep Kakko on that third line, that there's a chance maybe, that line with Cully, Wenberg, and a potential for Kakko there could really be a nice third line there.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting what Peter Laviolette decides to do here, because Wenberg pretty much is a defensive center, defensive forward. So, yes, he's got some offensive skill. Yes, he's been a top 6 guy, in his career. But you're right. He slots in much better in a 3C role and being a checking guy. And that's what he was in Columbus. He was a guy that was lined up against the other team's best lines night in and night out. So it's a role he's familiar with. And if he takes on that role here, the decision Peter Laviolette has to make is, well, are Kakko and Will Cooley the best fits if it's going to be a checking line? So that's a difficult decision for him. Barclay Goodrow, you could argue, and Jimmy Vesey are more suited to be checking wingers. Even Jack Roslovic could be a fit on that third line with Wenberg. But then what do? You're going to put Kakko now on the fourth line. So it's not quite figured out there yet what they're going to do. But talking about Wenberg being underappreciated, it's probably true. Listen, I would have preferred to see Adam Henrique be that guy, because I think he gives you more on the offensive end, and the Rangers do need more scoring from their bottom six, more consistent scoring from the bottom six. And Henrique would give you that, while at the same time being a good, smart defensive presence. And Henrique brings that. But listen, at the cost we saw that it took to get Adam Henrique as a rental, what Edmonton paid, Drury probably did the right thing, dropping out of that and kind of going to the next option, which is Wenberg, who's affordable option and fits the role of what a third center on the New York Rangers needs to be. But again, nothing's perfect. You got to figure out, it's the jigsaw puzzle. Now you got to get the pieces together. You got 20 games, to figure that out. And one other thing I'll say about Wenberg is, because now this improves their depth, if something happens in their top six on a long playoff run, or even during the regular season, but during a long playoff run, he's a guy that has the experience, that has played top 6 minutes before. And no, he's not Mika Zibanejad or Vincent Trocheck offensively, but yet you'd be comfortable moving him up into those roles should there be an injury or what have you. So that's kind of an extra little thing that hopefully you don't have to go to down the road, but it is there.
No doubt about it. And, you mentioned his ability to slot up in the lineup, and also even talking about Jack Roslovic that you brought up, who they got from the Blue Jackets for a 4th rounder. That's a pretty good value pick, if you ask me, especially a forward that's been hot, and he can play center and wing. So if you do, maybe because of injury or something, have to bump Wenberg up in the lineup, you could always slot Roslovic into the middle, and or potentially even keep Brodzinski around. I'm a big fan of Brodzinski. What do you think about how that bottom 6 now looks, with the potential for those guys and Brodzinski staying in there, and Edstrom and Rempe? I mean, there's a lot of people in that mix for Peter Laviolette to choose from now.
Yeah, and that goes back to the word depth, right? Now they have a lot of depth again. And they were a deep team this season going in, but you lose Philip Hedl. He only played 10 games this season. Now Blake Wheeler's out for the season as well. So really bit into their depth. So what the Rangers have done here is restock, and then you hope, that a Matt Rempe or an Adam Edstrom, let's say those are your extra forwards, or you could rotate one or the other in. That's pretty good, because they've shown that they can play here, and they bring an element, a gritty element, a size element, a physicality element to the lineup, each of them. And certainly, Rempe, there's a little something special about him that the guys feed off of, and how productive he is, the amount of hits per minute that he plays, per shift that he plays, things of that nature. But if you're a Stanley Cup winning team, do you think you're going 4 rounds with those two being your wings on the 4th line? No. I think that they're better suited being, inserting here and there, or just being the depth guys. So again, the depth has improved greatly for them. If they roll out a 4th line of Barclay Goodrow, Johnny Brodzinski, and Jimmy Vesey, that is about as good a 4th line as you're going to get from any team that's going to be in the Stanley Cup playoffs. But again, the question becomes, well, are you going to create a pure checking line centered by Alex Wenberg? And that's where you have to start figuring out, okay, well, if that's the case, how does Capo Caco fit into that? Is Capo Caco really now more going to be that first line right wing? And does Roslovic come back and play with Wenberg in a more checking line role? I would assume Jack's going to be on the first line for a little bit, because they want to get Mika Zibanejad going 5-on-5. And with Roslovic's speed, with his, kind of a shoot first mentality, even though he hasn't scored a lot this season, he can help open things up, I think, for Zibanejad. So I think he's going to get a look there. But in the long run, the big picture, it really is in question right now, what the bottom 6 is going to look like. My initial gut reaction is you put Wenberg between Cooley and Kako, and you put Jack up on the top line and see how that all plays out. And then Vesey, Goudreau, and Brodzinski are your fourth line, but work in Rempe. In fact, I know this is pre-recording, but it looks like Rempe's going to be in the lineup tonight on the fourth line, and Brodzinski's going to be a scratch. But I don't know that that's the full-time answer. And I'm not sure Peter Laviolette believes it's the full-time answer either. So again, time will tell. I got 20 games to figure it out down the stretch.
Yeah, and that's a good point too, that even if Brodzinski's not in the lineup tonight, I don't think that's a bad sign going forward. Because Laviolette even said the other day that he, going down the stretch here, he wants to make sure that even the depth guys are getting games in there just to stay fresh and just to stay in that, momentum. So I do feel like that there really isn't much of a better suited coach to juggle these lineup decisions. I'm a big fan of Laviolette. It didn't knock my socks off, last summer when they hired him. I've had a lot of respect for Peter Laviolette over the years, but the job that he's done in this first season for the Rangers has really just been phenomenal. What have you thought about his first year on the job here?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to argue with anything. There really haven't been any missteps for Peter Laviolette. And, listen, I've known Peter for a long time, back to his days with the Islanders when he first became a head coach in the NHL. He is a measured guy. He doesn't overreact. He'll get his team's attention if they need it. But, he's a pretty even-keeled guy. He trusts his locker room. This is pretty much a veteran team. A lot of good veteran leaders on this team. And I think he's shown trust in that. But I think two things came into play when they went to training camp this year and why they got off to such a good start. One is Laviolette comes in, different approach from Gerard Gallant, a different structure and style on the ice. He's a respected guy, Stanley Cup ring. And again, a very even-keeled approach, really good communicator. You'll see him on the ice, at practices, taking guys individually, talking with them. You hear from the players about how he communicates really well individually and to the group behind the scenes as well. So there's that aspect. And then the other aspect was, well, the Rangers, I really believe this too. Maybe the best thing that happened to them last season was that they got bounced in the first round by New Jersey. And they got kicked in the teeth. And they kicked themselves in the teeth in that series, right? So they went back, and this core group all came back again this season, but they came back on a mission. And if Peter Laviolette says, you know what, this is what we need to do. We're going to change these things on the ice. We're going to be more committed in the neutral zone. We're going to play tighter back in our own zone. These guys were going to buy in. I really, really believe that. And I thought that's why they got off to such a good start at the beginning of the season. So it's a combination of the coach, respect for the coach, and the fact of, oh boy, we're ticked, at what we did in the playoffs last year. So I think you combine all that, and that has really fed into this season, certainly the start to the season. But he's a steady hand. And I think that's why he's been around so long in this league, is there's just, I love the fact that there's no overreacting with him. And he's made some smart moves. Like he and Benny Allaire, decided to give Igor, a week away from games, around the All-Star break. Let him work on his game. It could be a long-term gain and a short-term. Well, we'll see. As it turned out, Jonathan Quick was winning every night. So, it worked out perfectly fine. But they were willing to take that chance, in part because of Quick, but because, again, sees the big picture here, and he knows what he's got, and he pushes the right buttons. And listen, he's done a terrific job. It is really, really hard to argue with or nitpick with anything. Giving Lafreniere the chance, on that line to play with Panarin at the beginning of the year. It was Hedl, but obviously it's been Trocheck most of the season, and stick with it. Not just, all right. I mean, granted, Lafreniere got off to a good start, but there have been times where you could have pulled Lafreniere off that line, but he hasn't. He is stuck with it. You know, he believes in Kreider and Zibanejad, even though there have been the struggles 5-on-5. You know, the focus has been more, let's find the right wing for those guys, not let's break up, you know, Mika and Kreider. And, you know, he's shown faith, you know, in Will Cooley. Will Cooley's been on that third line and played regular minutes all season and has rewarded the Rangers with that. He's given opportunities to the Johnny Brodzinskis and the Matt Rempes. Listen, it is really hard to nitpick and find anything where you could say, oh, what is he thinking, you know, this season. It's certainly been a good one for him, no matter where this ends up, you know, down the road.
Yeah, it's true. And, you know, you mentioned the Rangers getting bounced against the Devils last year. And the way they came out this year almost reminds me of the determination of how the Tampa Bay Lightning were after they had that record-setting regular season and then got bounced in 4 straight in the first round and then came back. And you just saw the next couple of years, they just had that drive. And even though they didn't have a coach change like the Rangers did, I think the players, the veteran players that make up the team, really just came out with that, you know, that it doesn't matter what's going to get in their way this year. They want to get back to the playoffs, and that's where it all starts again.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting. I'll take you back 30 years ago. I remember after the 92-93 Rangers season, I was covering the team, and I remember we were in Rye. The season was over. It was the end of season wrap-up interviews with the players and everything. And I remember Mark Messier said, not just once, but maybe about 3 times, that what a firm believer he is. And then, you know, I'm paraphrasing 30 years later, but what a firm believer he is in a really good team. Sometimes, I shouldn't even say sometimes, almost all the time, needs to lose before it wins. So you might have that initial burst and have a really great season, like the Rangers in 92 when they won the President's Cup. And then, you know, they were leading the Penguins there in the playoffs. And then the Ron Francis goal on Richter from mid-ice, and it all went down the tubes after that. And then 93, they didn't even make the playoffs. And Messier just stood by it. He goes, I've been through this before. You know, even if you have that one initial burst, you tend to have to lose before you win. And you gave a great example. Tampa was a great example of that. They kept, you know, they were kind of there and then they weren't. You know, they went to the final, lost to Chicago. And that's the way I felt about the Rangers after 2022. There was so much hype about the Rangers heading into last season. And I'll be honest, I knew that they were a good team and I expected them to have a good regular season. I didn't think that they were going to go as far in the playoffs as they did the year before, because I always had, listen, it's not me, it's Mark Messier in my ear. I trust Mark Messier. And if he says this is generally how it goes, that's why I felt the Devils too. You know, franchise record wins and points last season, right? And then knock off the Rangers in the first round. Okay, they got kicked in the teeth in the second round. I thought they were going to take a step back this year. I didn't think it'd be as bad as it's been for them. I still thought they were going to be a playoff team. But I thought that they were going to scuffle this year, that this was going to be their, all right, got to lose before you win, you know? Mm-hmm. So I think there's a lot of that in play with the 23-24 Rangers. And that's why I think they're going to be, on top of the fact that they're a really good team, if they stay healthy, they are going to be a really, really difficult out in the playoffs this year.
Yeah, I totally agree. And, you know, going back on Mess's point even more, what those the Islanders had to lose to the Rangers in the late 70s before they went on their run. The Oilers lost to the Islanders before they started their run. So, I mean, hey, there's a history that goes back and proves everything that you just said is true. Now, Jim, before we get out of here, Dan, I just want to see, do you have anything that you would like to ask?
Yeah. Who do you think is probably flying under the radar, but probably is going to be a very big factor in the playoffs and down stretch run?
For the Rangers?
Yeah.
So the first one I'm going to say here is not an under the radar guy, but I'm a firm believer, and I've said this on other interviews this year, that Igor Shesterkin is their single most important guy. Like, I get it. Artemi Panarin's got to raise his level of play in the playoffs. That find that consistent greatness that he provides every season during the regular season. So that's going to be important. Obviously, Mika getting going at 5-on-5, getting that top line sorted out, figuring out roles. All those things are important. But the single most important New York Ranger is Igor Shesterkin, because when you talk about great, if you have a great goalie in the playoffs, and I believe Shesterkin can be a great goalie, and he hasn't been great this year, certainly has been much better as of late. If you have that great goalie, man, that can change everything, right? I mean, mentally on the opposition, but also just what it does for your team confidence, where he's stealing points, stealing wins in the regular season, and then takes it to another level in the playoffs. So I think he's the most important guy for them. But under the radar guy, I think Kaapo Kakko is an underrated guy. Under the radar guy. I shouldn't say underrated. Under the radar guy. Whether he's on that first line or third line, I think in the playoffs, I think you're going to see him on both, just depending on the way things go. But I think he can be a real under the radar guy. Big presence, gets in on the forecheck, wins puck battles, really good 5-on-5 player. He needs to score more. Like, to be the guy they need him to be, he needs to score more, and I get that. But his game, I believe, is suited to the playoffs, and I think he could be a really, really big factor for them throughout the postseason.
Yeah, I think that's a great call, actually. And we even saw a couple of years ago how he really looked like a big time player in those moments too. So I totally agree. And one last thing, Jim, I just want to ask you. I know it's been a very fun season so far. The Rangers right now have a 4-point lead in division. Do you think that the Rangers are going to hold on and win their first division title in 9 years?
So I do. I think they're the best team in the division. And again, I will go back and lean on the goaltending. I think with Shesterkin and how well Quick has played, that gives them an advantage over any other team in the division, in my opinion. Within the conference, you can argue Boston matches up pretty darn well in goal with them. And listen, if Sergei Bobrovsky keeps playing at this level, Florida certainly meets the Rangers standard in that too. But I just like the Rangers goaltending better than I do Carolina. And I know Freddie Anderson's back now. I would assume it's going to take him a little while to find his full game. He's been out for so long. But that's going to be a big boost for Carolina, no question. But I think even at his best, Freddie Anderson's not Igor Shesterkin. Plus, I like Quick as the backup as well. I like the Ranger tandem better, which is really going to be big in the month of March because Rangers have a very, very heavy schedule, beginning with this 3 and 4 that comes up, right here, beginning with the St. Louis game. So I think the Rangers will be able to hold off Carolina. I'm not worried about the third place team. In fact, Philly could fall back. That's going to be the intriguing battle, I think. Not that Rangers Carolina won't be. And we'll get a look at Rangers against Carolina this coming week. But I think, that Islander, Philadelphia battle for third place is going to be intriguing. And, I just don't think, especially now after the Tyler Toffoli trade, I'm not sure New Jersey's going to enter that mix. But listen, don't underestimate Carolina. That is a really good team that's now added Jake Gensel. You just got to wonder about the Kuznetsov move. As a player, I think maybe this could just, change the scenery and just a fresh opportunity with the team that's a legitimate cup contender could do wonders for him. But, we know he's had off ice issues. So we just don't know where his head's at. And what does that do to the chemistry of the Carolina Hurricanes? We'll see. We'll see how that plays out. I do think it's going to go down to the wire, Rangers and Carolina, but I think the Rangers are going to hold on because they have the better goaltending. And of course, all of this changes if one team or the other has a massive injury, or hopefully neither team has that happen. But all things being equal, I would say the Ranger goaltending puts them over the top against Carolina.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that too. And, that's, absolutely makes total sense. Everything you just said, Jim. I think it's definitely going down to the wire. As much as I would love to see the Rangers win it by 10 points, I don't think that's going to happen. And, especially with them getting Gunsel too. That's definitely something to keep in the back of your mind. But hey, Jim, thank you so much for taking the time with us today. Before we get you out of here, do you have anything that you'd like to plug for yourself?
Fans can follow me, and they have been doing it for years, and I appreciate it at Jim Cerny. And certainly, this is a new venture for me going to Forever Blue Shirts. We're at foreverblueshirts.com. It's a great fun opportunity for me to go back and, cover the Rangers full time again. I spent the previous 5 years, working at NHL.com, but it was more of a desk job, as managing the site as opposed to, getting down and dirty. So this opportunity has been great for me. All my years working for the team, and before that, just being a reporter around the team, to be back doing that again is great. It's exciting, and hanging out with you guys and talking Rangers, it's just all so much fun. So, it would be awesome to have the fan support, at foreverblueshirts.com. I think we're doing some really good work over there, and hopefully the fans agree. And I appreciate you having me on today.
Yeah, and make sure to check out his podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Forever Blue Shirts Radio, really great stuff there. Always very informative. Like he mentioned, the great Neil Smith interview is on there too. So make sure to check that out. And Jim, thank you so much for joining us today. I will catch you next time.
All right. Thanks, Rob. Thanks, Dan.
I go out too late. Got nothing on my brain. That's what people say. That's what people say. I could want too many days, but I can't make them stay. At least that's what people say. That's what people say. But I keep cruising. Can't stop, won't stop moving. It's like I got music in my mind saying it's gonna be alright. But the player's gonna play. And the haters gonna hate. Baby, I'm just gonna shake it off.
And please direct your attention to the pitcher's mound for a ceremonial first pitch. Introducing the ultimate baseball fan. All the way from McDonald Land, please welcome the one, the only, Grimace.
Tonight, the Mets had just 2 runs and 4 hits, and that continues a trend. The Mets have hit extremely well on the road. They've averaged 5.5 runs per game away from Citi Field, best in the majors. At home, less than 3.5 runs per game, second worst in the majors. Mets will send David Peterson to the mound tonight. How about that?
Well, Garrett is struck out the first. 2 out, nobody on for Otto Lopez. Still going, makes the catch. Put it in the books.
I don't know how you do it. I put together some really impressive deals. But this thing you've pulled off, it's amazing. A big and tasty for just $1? How do you do it? What's your secret?
JD rockets one out to right center. Back at the gap goes Chisel looking up. And it's over here. JD Martinez wins it with a 2-run opposite field home run.
Grimace, we could own this town.
But Diaz was up in the bullpen and the Mets had a small lead, but now that it's a 5-run lead, Sean Reed Foley will pitch the ninth.
On the ground, McNeil with another chance. He gets all 3 ground balls on the ninth, then the ball game is over. The Mets sweep the Padres, and they've won 5 in a row. And the Mets sweep the Padres for the first time in 18 years.
Oh boy, the cat was little, and the dish that ran away with the spoon.
Wow.
Grimace. It's time to get back. Oh boy, lunch at McDonald's.
I knew you liked happy endings.
Go to the top of the sixth inning in Arlington, Texas. The Rangers are now up 6-2. And Nimmo is set to lead off.
And now Nimmo hits one in the air to deep right field. Back goes Jankowski at the wall, jumping, and it's out of here. Brandon Nimmo begins the Mets comeback with his second home run in 2 nights. Number 9 for Nimmo. And it cuts the Texas lead to 6-3.
Here's Alonso.
Ground ball toward the middle of the diamond. That'll go through for a base hit for Alonso. So Pete is on base for the second time tonight. And the Mets will get the tying run to the plate with starting Marte. Marte grounds one toward the hole, base hit. Alonso to second, he'll stop there. So Marte, who might have broken his bat, grounds one through the hole for his first hit of the night. And the Mets have the tying runs on base.
Alvarez 2 for 2. Tying runs on. 6-4 Texas.
Runners get set to go. 3-2. And he lines one in left center field. That's an extra base hit off the gap. And it'll tie the game. Alonso is in. Marte scores. Francisco Alvarez with a 2-run double. And the Mets draw even 6-6 in the 8th. Huge hit for Alvarez, his second straight 3-hit game as he plates a pair to get the Mets even. It's 1 for 3 and a walk tonight. Nimmo at second, Martinez at first, 1 out, top of the 9th. And Alonso pulls one over the bag. That's a fair ball going down the line. Nimmo is in with the lead run. Racing for third is Martinez. He's going to be held there. Pete Alonso gives the Mets the lead with an RBI double. And it's 7-6 New York in the 9th.
Edwin Diaz on for the 9th to try to finish this thing off.
Tonight he scored 2 runs. The tying run aboard and a ground ball hit to short. Lindor's got it to McNeil for 1 on the first. Double play, 2 men down. 6-4-3 double play erases the base runner. Iglesias with the turn in the middle of the double play. He got 1 into. So just like that, the Rangers are down to their final out, and Leody Taveras popped it up, shallow left field. Nimmo coming on, he's there. And the ball game is over. The Mets win their 7th in a row as they come from 4 runs down. Diaz secures it for the save.
Look, does anyone have a question about the deadly virus that could kill us all?
Could the virus kill the Grimace?
Nothing can kill the Grimace. All right, we're done here.
And that's right, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Best Seat in the House podcast. I hope you liked our little extended opener there. I'm Rob Kramer. This is my co-host, Daniel Bobo Curlin. And Dan, how you doing today, buddy?
Well, I have to say that Mets seem to be really rubbing off of that Grimace magic. I think Grimace needs to maybe show up every couple of days to make sure, to little recharge the Grimace magic. He doesn't need to show up every day, but he needs to show up every periodically enough. And while you're at it, bring back, especially in the New York area, bring back the Grimace shake. That Grimace shake.
Yeah, I'm absolutely with you, man. And maybe they should, arrange for Grimace to throw out a first pitch on every homestand.
Yeah, exactly. At least once every homestand.
All right, everybody. Well, in case you're not up to date on everything that we're talking about right now, last week the Mets had Grimace. I believe it was about a week ago today that the Mets had Grimace throw out the first pitch last Wednesday at Citi Field. They just came back from the weekend series in London where they split the 2 games with the Phillies. Then on Tuesday, they dropped the return to Citi Field to the Miami Marlins. So they continued that series last Wednesday where the Grimace threw out the first pitch. And ever since that game, the Mets have not lost. They've played 7 games since then. They're 7-0, and they'll be going for the sweep of the world champion Texas Rangers tonight at 8 o'clock, about 2 hours from now, first pitch, as me and Dan sit here recording this on Wednesday night, just before 6 p.m. here in the East. But before we get to all that nonsense that we're going to be talking about for the first little bit of this show here, as you enjoyed that little opener we had, we do have to start on a somber note as one of the greatest players in the history of Major League Baseball, Willie Mays,
unfortunately, yesterday, right before the Mets took the field in Texas, believe it or not, the news broke, where the great Willie Mays, the Say Hey Kid, passed away at the age of 93. A very long, very great life from Willie Mays. And, when news like this broke, Dan, it did make me even happier that 2 years ago the Mets righted a wrong that was 50 years overdue, where they finally fulfilled their original owner Joan Payson's wish and retired the number of Willie Mays, which she promised him when they first traded for him back in 1972.
Yeah, exactly. I have to give a lot of credit to Steve Cohen. As soon as he bought the team, he made plans to do this. I remember that retirement number ceremony, they didn't even announce it. None of us knew until literally old timers. We didn't know until it happened. I was there. I didn't expect I was going to all of a sudden be there for Willie Mays' number retirement ceremony, but it happened, and I think it was a perfect time for that to happen.
Yeah. And that's right, everybody. It's a celebration, my friends. Welcome once again to another edition of the Best Team in the House podcast. I'm one of your celebrating hosts, Rob Kramer. Right to the right of me is my co-host, Daniel Bobo Carlin, who's also celebrating. And the reason why we are bringing down the house today is because the New York Metropolitans are in the playoffs for the 11th time in team history. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, for the 11th time in team history. Yep. And for the second in the last 3 years under our owner, Steve Cohen, the New York Mets are in the playoffs. And before we get into anything else, Dan, how the hell are you doing today, buddy?
I am doing good. I had to drink a lot of tea. I freaking, that's like my father's freaking saying to remind her of those freaking commercials of Howie Rose effect that I'm bringing that I keep reaching for the big little tea after the last couple of Met games. Like that game getting into the playoffs, that took a lot out of me. Like my voice was shot. Like I had to reach for the tea. Then yesterday, holy shit, that game, there needed to be medics on standby for that game. Because that game that game felt like just, oh no, come on, Severino, don't be the same guy you just choked with the Yankees. I mean, you saw the text I was sending. All of a sudden, he hung in there. The Mets answered the call. They got the run. Like I was going nuts. I was like, I had to, and then once again, I had to reach for the tea. I think today I'm going to have to reach for the tea. Potentially.
No doubt about it. Everybody is going to be like Howie Rose going for that Bigelow tea after screaming our asses off the last couple of days. Let's just start off where you started things off, Dan. Let's start on Monday afternoon. That's where this whole crazy week started. And actually, it really started even the day before that in Milwaukee, where the Mets really had to win that game to put themselves still in control of their own destiny. And that's exactly what they did. They won in Milwaukee, went across the country, right back to Milwaukee, and back to Atlanta, where they were last week for a doubleheader to make up two games that were rained out by not only the rains of Hurricane Helene, but the incompetence of Major League Baseball Commissioner Rob Manfred. Either way, it didn't matter, because as stupid of a doubleheader as it was to have happened on the final day of the year, it didn't matter because the Mets won. Dan, this has to be one of the biggest regular season Met wins that we've ever seen. I mean, it goes back to, 99 in the last game of the year against the Pittsburgh Pirates when the Mets clinched a playoff berth.
By the way, I was at that game.
Oh, yeah, that's cool. I was actually at the day before when Rick Reed threw a complete game shutout. I was at that game. So, yeah, man, I mean, look, just phenomenal. I mean, I guess you could consider the season finale in 99 also the shutout that Al Leiter threw in Cincinnati for the one-game playoff that was considered a regular season game, but it was really just a tiebreaker. But, I mean, this was one of the most insane victories of all time. And as a matter of fact, it even goes back, if you go back in the Major League Baseball record books, 10 years. Now, if you're not familiar with all the weird statistics that they do, they have a whole bunch of statistics that they put in that contribute to a team's percentage to win the World Series, right? Now, especially one regular season game out of 162, it's kind of hard to change that percentage by a lot. And it would have to be late in the year with a lot of stuff on the line. Well, Francisco Lindor's home run, according to all these statistics, is the most impactful regular season moment that has happened in at least the last decade, that increased the Mets' chance to win the World Series by a full 1.5%, which doesn't sound like a lot, but when you think about it, one swing, one play, the 2-run shot in the top of the 9th inning off Johnson that Francisco Lindor sent deep into the Atlanta afternoon. Dan, when you think of regular season, because obviously the playoffs are on a different level, but when you think of regular season, not only games, because we talked about that, how great that was, but regular season moments, I mean, that Lindor home run right there, that's right up there with Piazza's 921 home run in 2011. In 2001 after 9/11. Like, that is one of the biggest regular season moments in Mets history.
Yeah, that is just a wild Mets moment. Like, I was jumping up, like I nearly fell. Like, I was so loud, Mr. Malunigan started barking. Like, what's going on? Like, he started barking.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, can you think of any like, I mean, it's really tough to think. Like, I remember a John Olerud grand slam off Greg Maddux in 1999 as well. I remember Mike Piazza taking Billy Wagner deep in a big series in Houston back in 1998. Carlos Beltran's home run against the Phillies in 2006. There are a lot.
Which, by the way, that one in 2006, I was at that game. That went into extra innings. That was old school extra innings. No free runner on base. And
yep, 16th inning.
I had that game on record, and I watched. And my mother, when I came home that day, I don't know why, my sister was like very little then. She was like little then. She was like, my sister was still in elementary school. They took her with me, right? She said, you have to look at the broadcast of this game. You're like, you will get a kick out of Gary Cohen's call. Like, my mom said that. And I watched it, and I heard that call when Gary Cohen said, we can all go home.
Yeah, it was one of the great calls. Even that Gary Cohen call, for the Piazza home run. This is back when Gary Cohen was on the radio, too, back then. The Piazza home run off Wagner in 98. I had that home run call on my voicemail for years after that. It used to drive people that called me crazy because it was like 2 straight minutes of Gary Cohen losing his mind.
Yeah. The surprising part about that call, I had this CD, right? During 2002, the Mets' 40th anniversary, the Mets gave out this CD of all the big moments. Like, some of the audio was from TV calls, most of it was from radio calls. And
I have that too.
Yeah, remember it featured some narrations by Gary Cohen.
And that's right, everybody. Welcome back once again to another edition of the Best in the House podcast. As always, I'm your host, Rob Kramer, joined by my co-host, Daniel Bobo Curlin. And we're in celebration mode again today for the second week in a row on the Best in the House podcast. As last week, we were celebrating an incredible end of the season when the Mets clinched in Atlanta to get the playoff spot and then went on to Milwaukee to defeat the Milwaukee Brewers in dramatic fashion with a 3-run shot by the great Pete Alonso to get them to this series where today we're celebrating beating the Philadelphia Phillies. That's right, Dan. The team that knocked us out in 2007 and knocked us out in 2008. And what did we do this year? We took their 95-win season and their National League East championship
and flushed it right down the toilet. That's right. My name is Robert Cramer. His name is Daniel Bobo Curlin. This is the Best Seat in the House podcast. And Dan, how you doing tonight, buddy? Holy crap, man. I cannot believe what we just sat through. This was a historic night on many fronts. It's been a historic week in a lot of ways. Obviously we're going to get to a lot of things tonight as the Yankees right now are going on in Kansas City in the late stages of their game. Winning late right now, so we'll have to keep an eye on that. The New York Jets unexpectedly fired their head coach, Robert Saleh, earlier this week after a loss across the pond in London. We're going to get into that in a little bit. Your Giants came up big this past weekend in Seattle. But, I mean, let's be honest. The biggest story, my friend, is the New York Mets defeating the Philadelphia Phillies. And, Dan, you were at the game in Game 3. You saw, exactly, what the atmosphere was like there, what this team was like. What did you, experience just being there with the explosion that this team had in Game 3?
I was part of what
Hey, Dan, your audio is really bad right now. I can barely even hear you. Really can't hear you at all. Dan?
Are you able to hear me now?
Okay, I can hear you much better now. There we go.
But for one thing, that as you can see, this towel was a towel given out at the game. That it was waving around. That's the actual one for the game. So, but yeah, that was an incredible energy. Like just on that train, it was like it was rolling. Like I had to pick up some money I did from a side job over in Manhattan, right? So getting to Manhattan, right? There was just this incredible energy on the way to the train. I've been on a train just the moment I got off. It was just like I cannot tell you. It just felt like a different energy going into that ballpark. It was packed. Of course, also there was the bathroom lines were long. Even exiting the stadium, that is a good thing. You want that. You want it to take a long time to exit the stadium, because that's exactly what it means. The Mets are in the playoffs. If it's taking that long to exit the stadium, and this was even after I went to the bathroom after the game ended.
Yeah, no doubt about it, man. They crammed 45,000 people in there the other night. And you know what? Actually, I pulled this up, so I do want to show this before we really get into all the aspects of the Philly series. But I do want to play this because you attended a watch party at Citi Field during the Milwaukee Brewers series, and you got on Fox TV, the local station Fox 5 around here. So I want to play this real quick because it was pretty cool seeing you on there and having, Anthony retweeted it. They mentioned it on Jim and Sam. So you're getting some press this week, buddy, in addition to the Mets having a great week. Yeah?
I called in.
Dan,
I called him this morning.
Did you really? Okay, I'm gonna have to get that audio. I wish you would have told me. I didn't know that.
I'll find one I can send you.
All right, you know what? Maybe we'll pop up on Patreon later this week and cover that. And that'll be a fun little pop-up show. So if you want to check us out on patreon.com/Best Seat in the House podcast, it's only $5 a month. And we got a lot of extra bonus material on there.
But yeah.
Yeah, what were you saying?
Definitely roll the footage of me.
Yeah, here we go. Hold on a sec. Not sure why that's not working.
And I literally did this off of my pointing my phone off the TV because I had recorded the news because I knew it was there.
All right, damn it. Now I have to find that one again because for some reason I preloaded. Okay, here we go. I preloaded it and it didn't work. So here we go. Dan, let's see. This is all right. This one right here.
It's been one of the most fun seasons of my life. It's been a whirlwind of emotions. I mean, it looked bleak. It looked horrible in May, but then somehow June we came together, and I said, I think we might sneak into playoffs, and who knows where from there. We did it. I think.
Very cool there, Dan. So how did that all come about?
Well, they just somehow caught my attention. And who knows? Maybe there was some care of people from the news. Maybe I was throughout the moments game starting. I'm waving my grimace. I'm waving this by the way. Mets grimace. Mets have had a winning record since I bought this on Amazon. This wearing a batting helmet ice cream bowl. I have a ton of these from Met games, and of course I got ones from every stadium I've been to. But Mets grimace is here. Hi, Robert. Hi, Robert.
I love it. There's nothing better than a Mets grimace right now. And you know what I was laughing about too? How great is it? I've been sending to people in my text threads and everything hashtag Red October because that was the Phillies hashtag they had on their on all their social media pages this year. So it's pretty good to rub that in because I saw them all holding up signs in Philadelphia, which, by the way, what a trash fan base that is, booing every injured player. They're absolute garbage. And they were holding up signs that said no MG. And hey, guess what? I guess you could take Red October and flush that down the toilet too.
Yep, exactly. I literally just sent the text to any Phillies fan I know. You've just been grimace, bitches.
Nothing can kill the grimace. Let's go. Let's go, man. I cannot believe we are here right now from where we started. Remember, the really, and it's funny thinking about Gary Cohen staying up till 3:00 in the morning thinking of this line, but it really is a brilliant line. From 0-5 to OMG, and it could not, just sum up this season any better because, man, when we were doing the show in the first weeks of April, when they got off to that 0-5 start, and then, when they finally really hit rock bottom and were 19-31 or something along those lines, and it was just awful. Man, I'm telling you right now, I was flipping out. So many Met fans were losing their minds with this crap. And, to think of where they are right now, it's such an improbable run. And, it really is reminiscent to me of the 2019 Washington national team that they did everything on the road. They were the bottom wild card team. Nobody expected anything of them. They also went 89-73, just like the Mets. And, it's there's a lot of parallels there. And, hey, let's just hope the Mets can do exactly what they did.
Yep, exactly. But I just know it's like still unbelievable. I just can't believe we're here. The NLCS. By the way, anyone watching this, if you have any a lead to maybe tickets that are in the $100 range for the NLCS, do let me know because of the prices. I had to skip this round because I want to make sure I'm saved for the World Series.
Yeah, I mean that's probably the smart play because I was even looking too just to get in the stadium in the nosebleeds, and it was I think like $250 just to get in.
So I'm keeping my fingers crossed. Pretty much the next time I'll be at Citi Field will be for the big one. I've had to and I've been at the stadium for so many games. I mean, the team was in a bottom heap, and haven't been and the NLCS. I was debating. Yes, I said, I got to kind of save this for the World Series if we get there because I couldn't do every round. I knew going into this I probably wasn't going to be able to do every round. So I knew maybe I had to do the NLDS because I feel like the way the season's culminated didn't look like we're going to make it. It just had to, the story of me had to show up with me being at a playoff game. And
absolutely.
So I knew I had to save it for if we get there. So as of today, unless somehow I get a call or somehow I get invited or something, that I have to sit out I'm gonna have to watch the NLCS at home.
But yeah, well, it could be worse. That could be worse. The Mets could be home, and luckily because of this swing, they're not home right now.
Trusted arms. The 2-1. Lindor towards right center field. This one is back. It is gone! Grand slam! And Lindor puts the Mets on top. The biggest swing of the season for New York.
What a shot that was. You knew the second that came off the bat that it was gone. And just what a moment for Francisco Lindor, man. I mean, this guy has done it in the past in the playoffs with the Cleveland Indians. And, he wasn't awful in 2022. He did hit a home run in those couple of games they played. He didn't embarrass himself. But, the way he's carried himself this year, he's said all the right things. I love the fact that he hit the home run and just put his head down and rounded the bases like he's done it a million times, because he has. And even in his post-game press conference saying that, when they move on, the one thing you have to remember is just to, do your job and respect your opponent. And it's such a growth from Francisco Lindor. He's really turned into captain material on this team, and getting it done in the playoffs is the best way to cement that, right?
Yeah, that was just unbelievable. I could tell you, Mr. Malunigan was barking after me going nuts. You went strong.
And how great was it? Oh, we lost Bo there. I guess he's gonna come back in a sec. But how great was it to see the sad face of Bryce Harper there? All right, here we go. Bo,
hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
All right. Well, what happened was Mr. Malunigan was barking when I went nuts after that one.
Exactly, man. How could he not be? Because you're losing your mind. I'm losing my mind. My dog Murphy's losing his mind. Everybody's going crazy. Citi Field absolutely went nuts, man. How awesome would it have been to be in the stadium for that? Man, these guys were just hanging from the rafters, so to speak.
Yeah, exactly. That place was nuts. I mean, also I gotta say, I don't know if you're going to be available for it. I'm thinking of maybe watching Game 1 of the NLCS at Donovan's in Woodside if you want to join me. Hey guys, hope you enjoyed our best of 2020. And for heaven's sakes, 2025, please win a World Series, Mets. Isn't that much? Not much I want to ask for. Win the World Series, Mets. I want that. Happy New Year, everyone.